All right, this video is I'm going to go through a slideshow about our AMS practices and procedures, just kind of an overview. We're going to start with the bell schedule. And so this says draft because on the next slide, we're going to already see a mistake, or not a mistake. It's just something that has already changed just since making this video or this slideshow. So I just wanted you to, in general, see the periods and then the staggered passing periods. This is to kind of, we're going to have one-way hallways as well, but this will limit students in the hallway, kind of honor some social distancing. Between first and second period is where your Tiger Time advisory occurs. So that's a 26-minute class. We have that every day. And you kind of can see all the way down to third period. And then we start to see the lunch schedule. And this is where there is a mistake. We're actually going to go A, 7th and 8th, B, 6th, C, 7th and 8th. So all 7th and 8th graders will have lunch either at the beginning of fourth period and then have class, or they'll have class and then have lunch. Sixth graders will be these times, in general, these times, but it'll be an interrupted lunch. So they'll have a little class, go to lunch, and then go back and have class. As far as the 7th and 8th grade lunch, it's truly a split lunch. So as we get closer to the start of school, you'll know based on teacher and or course which lunch you have. And then again, this is just what the afternoon kind of looks like with those passing periods staggered. We're going to attempt, again, everything is in flux. The name of the game is flexibility, because we are going to attempt to dismiss students based on what their parents have says their proposed transportation is at the end of the day. So we're going to get our bus riders out and loaded on the buses, get our walkers and bike riders on their way, and then once buses roll, we'll dismiss our car riders. Again, all this is, of course, subject to change as different events in the community unfold and decisions are made by leadership. So duty expectations. You are expected to be on duty in the morning and in the afternoon and do hallway duty daily. AM and PM duty is historically been once a week for both and typically on the same day. However, to spread the kids out a little bit and to honor some of the safety practices and protocols that we're going to be putting in place, there is a possibility that people will have AM and or PM duty more than once a week. That may fall on a rotating cycle by grading period. So you're just gonna have to wait for those schedules to come out. Hallway duty, though, is daily, and you're expected to be in the hallway. For example, if your conference period is 5th period, as soon as 4th period's over, you move out into the corridor closest to your classroom, and you monitor the hallways through the passing periods until the final tardy bell rings. And at that time, we escort all students who are late to class to their classroom. We don't just watch them go into the classroom. We don't wave them on with the teacher. They actually get an adult escort to their class. And as far as tutorials, we're going to wait on more information about tutorials as all of the events going on right now are unfolded. We've typically asked for AM and PM tutorials from each teacher, but we don't have late arrival right now. So we're looking at meeting times and planning times. And so again, we're just going to have to be really flexible with that. Cell phone practices. Now this is a very brief overview. These are just the high points. So for students, 6th grade, I don't know how to say this any more clear. It is instructional purposes only. They are not to use their cell phones for any reason. They're not to listen to music. They're not to do anything other than maybe participate in a Kahoot. They can, during Tiger Time, maybe check their grades, but it should be a teacher-directed task with a clear beginning and a clear ending. 6th graders should just not be on cell phones for any other reasons. 7th and 8th grade, you can look at offering some type of cell phone type reward, like maybe there is some music during independent. We don't really want to have gaming, and really music is such a surface way to say we want to limit the use of cell phones to instructional reasons. Maybe they're using their phone to do some research, but it needs to be instructional. 7th and 8th graders can also use their phone as their agenda or their calendaring tool, but there should be designated times, maybe in the first 5 minutes of class where they put in some due dates, or maybe that's the last 5 minutes of class routine. Other than that, phones should be silenced and stowed from 8:30 to 4. Students are not allowed to carry cell phones on their person. They cannot keep them in a backpack or in their pocket. They must be stowed in a backpack or a purse. They're just not to be on their person. For staff, we just ask that you refrain from personal use during instructional time or in front of students. So to kind of elaborate on that in front of students, you should not take personal calls or respond to text publicly. That should be done in private. So you're walking down the hallway during your conference period to go get a soda from the lounge. You shouldn't have your cell phone out and be on it answering texts. We want to model what's expected of students. However, there will be emergency situations, and you can try to seek coverage, but if you need to take a call or need to respond to something that's critical, for those rare occasions, that is totally acceptable. Classroom and discipline practices. In one of the other presentations, you learned about getting back on track questions, along with some questions on dealing with challenging students, with some reflecting on our behavior, seeking to understand their behavior. If we let those tools guide our communication and interactions with students, we can mitigate a lot of issues. Common language, again, slant, roar, think. Utilizing that common language makes things clear and consistent for students. They don't have to wonder about what you mean with some of your expectations if you're reminding them to slant, roar, and think. We also implement lots of capturing kids' hearts practices on our campus. We're going to ask you to develop social contracts in your classrooms, to greet your students at the door, to intentionally build community, maybe through doing activities like good things. These things will build relationships and foster trust, again, to mitigate some of those potential discipline issues. But we know those are still going to arise. And so we want to make sure that when we start to see the inklings of those with different students, that we partner with parents. They are going to be our first line of defense with students. And we want to partner with them early and make sure we are partnering with them to assist us in supporting our students. First time a parent hears from you is after you've had several issues with their child. They're going to wonder why you didn't involve them sooner. We do have a system in place for you to assign students to a school-wide detention if they have persistent misbehaviors but are kind of minor. You've reminded them a few times to be prepared for class. You've reminded them 3 or 4 times to stop talking in class, and you sought some support from parent, no change in behavior. So you can assign them a detention that you don't have to monitor. The school will monitor that. That's usually, in the past, we've called that a non-negotiable dehaul, because the kid they've just persisted with the misbehavior despite parent communication. It is the teacher's responsibility to contact the parent and make them aware that their student's being assigned to detention. So the office assigns the date and time, but the teacher makes the parent aware of the reason behind the behavior and lets them know that they're assigning them a detention, and that they will be hearing from the office regarding a day and a time. But then if parent contact doesn't make things better, you assign a couple of teacher detentions and things are not better, of course, we would want to submit a discipline referral to get that student in front of their assistant principal to discuss those behaviors as well. Also, aside from those things, you may have an egregious behavior that occurs in your classroom. Maybe a student has an outburst of some directed profanity. That would, of course, result in a referral to the teacher. I do want to say, while I'm on the screen, and we'll reiterate this in person, we do not put students out of the classroom for minor misbehaviors. You can ask them to step outside and talk to them, but we want to utilize our getting back on track questions, our dealing with challenging student strategies. We want to utilize those strategies for a quick hallway conversation and get them back in the classroom for learning. The only reason why a student should be removed from a classroom is for an egregious offense, and for that, you can ask them to step outside and call the office for someone to come retrieve that student. All right, so hopefully that kind of gives you a preview, but it also may have raised some questions. So please use the Wonder Board to go and put some discussion questions there, and know that we will be also discussing some of these things in person at or virtual at our new teacher meeting on July 30th. Thank you.